Hello and welcome everybody to today's Training Industry Leader Talk, Effective Coaching and Feedback, sponsored by ELB Learning, Biz Library, Ariel Group, Leadership Progress Cycle, and Blue Point Leadership. So I'm Liz Spate, the Events Marketing Specialist here at Training Industry, and I'm thrilled to have you with us here today. Before we get started, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speakers and get the most out of today's program. So throughout today's event, please feel free to open that chat window now and let us know where you're joining us from today. You can use this chat window to interact with our speaker with any comments, but for those questions, please plug those questions in the Q&A icon on your toolbar below. This will be a very interactive, jam-packed session, so our speakers will be addressing questions throughout. And at the end of the time here with us, you will notice a short evaluation survey has popped open in another tab in your browser. We would appreciate hearing your thoughts on today's event. And as always, our sessions are being recorded and archived on trainingindustry.com, and you'll receive a follow-up email from us to include that link to the on-demand session. If this is your first Training Industry event, we would love to welcome you. We exist to make connections among learning and development professionals. We offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D, like live events like today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, our podcast, and our membership. We would also love to hear about what you've learned from today's session on social media, so please follow us on your favorite platforms for us to continue the conversation. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our first speakers of the day. Kirsten is the co-founder of Cloverleaf, a B2B SaaS platform that provides automated coaching to over 20,000 teams in the biggest brands across the globe, where she oversees all things product and brand. She often speaks on the power of diversity of thought and psychological safe cultures, including her TEDx talk, a podcast called People Are Complicated, LinkedIn live events with talent, learning, and development leaders, and her upcoming book, Thrive, a manifesto for a new era of collaboration. And then we have Gary Lamach. He is an accomplished strategist with over 2 decades of experience in learning and development. As Vice President of Client Solutions, he advised global organizations on transforming their talent and learning functions to drive enterprise value. Working across industries, he architects comprehensive workforce strategies for large-scale transformation programs, ensuring measurable results through target initiatives. And with that, take it away, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Liz. It's a fantastic introduction.
Sure is. Well, Gary, shall we give folks any additional intro on us?
Sure. What I will do is I will give us a little bit more about ELB. We're really more than a training provider. We're really a strategic partner that helps these organizations solve their biggest business challenges by unlocking the potential of their people. So wherever people are key to success, ELB Learning delivers kind of like the strategy consultation and technology to help them adapt, innovate, and thrive. We partner with business leaders across the industry, much like Kirsten here, who has an uncanny ability of unlocking potential for leaders to have critical conversations with employees. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I have a pretty classic story of I was really good at my job and I was then gifted with a promotion of managing people. And it was a totally different skill set. I had no idea what I was doing. So I tried to use assessments. My company had used Myers-Briggs and StrengthsFinder, Clifton Strengths. And so I had all my people take those assessments. I put their results on a spreadsheet. I knew it would help me understand why certain people feel really empowered and others feel really disempowered, why some people feel conflict where other people feel like it wasn't clear enough. People just feel totally differently. And I knew the answers in those assessments, but I had no idea what I was looking at in that spreadsheet. And so that really led me on a long journey of talking with a lot of people who work and a lot of learning and talent leaders and trying to figure out how can we bring technology to really help people get the best out of those assessments by giving them interpersonal coaching in their flow of work and just help people better be able to navigate those situations, such as, relevant to this conversation, How can we help managers give effective coaching and feedback to their people? How can we help people actually sometimes be able to solve some of that stuff on their own when it comes to interpersonal dynamics instead of having to pull in their manager or their HRBP or, those types of folks. So that's really the passion I'm bringing to this conversation today, and that I bring to my work all the time, is that people are complicated, and so much of our attention and our stress and all of that we feel at work comes down to just being able to communicate really effectively and understand each other's differences, so that we can all do our best work together and be our best selves together.
I love that. I love that comment that people are complicated. And I think that most people that work with me and my wife would agree with that statement very well. I think we'd like to start everybody off with a poll. We just want to get a sense of where everybody's at. So how effectively do you feel managers in your organization are coaching their people? And I won't talk over this poll as I have a tendency to do. I'm going to let you guys focus on this so we can get some answers.
Yeah, I'll give everybody about 5 more seconds. Here are the results.
Wow, only 3% said highly effectively. Oh my goodness, that is crazy.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily surprise me, though. Does it surprise you, Kirsten?
It sadly does not, because that experience that I had is the experience most leaders have, is you are really good at your technical craft, and then you are given people management, and you just don't know how to do it because everyone is so different. So
Right. And it's a different skill, and it's a skill that we don't use until we're in that role a lot of the times, right?
And as everyone who is listening right now knows, it's really, really hard to support every single one of your managers and give them that training. So actually, most managers, I've heard stats as high as almost 70% of managers have never even had, 1 hour of training on how to actually lead people. So I get it.
Yeah. Heather, I see that you didn't see the poll. So exciting enough, we have another poll question coming up for you right now, so we can segue this. So you'll have your opportunity to answer at least one of them.
It should just pop up for you.
And again, we're going to give about 5 to 10 more seconds. I know this is a little bit longer of a question, but the results so far are very interesting. Just a teaser.
Yeah. Too nice, too busy, unclear expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, a little later on, I have some insight on that too nice that we can bring in a little later from a client that I recently worked with. But too busy is a problem, right? I mean, too busy is what we're facing. A lot of us are facing all the time. And as we move individuals that are great workers into these management roles, a lot of times they're still doing the job that they were great at on top of it, right?
Mm-hmm. This too nice, too harsh, and unclear expectations are things that I hear a lot from learning leaders too. The too harsh wasn't a large one in here, but we're actually, if you talk to managers, they say I am giving feedback, I am giving coaching. But if you talk to their people, they say, well, I didn't understand it. It wasn't clear enough, or like like, oh, I didn't realize you were so nice. I didn't realize that was actually like an opportunity for me to figure out a new way to operate, right? Like I didn't realize I was supposed to change my behavior from that or do something differently because it was just so kind,
Right.
Trying to tell me I'm doing great.
Yeah.
But then the too harsh is unfortunately a real one too, where people just, if you say it too directly for certain personality types, they don't know how to, like, it actually shuts down the part of their brain that can really comprehend that information, and it puts them into like, uh-oh, I should be scared, I need to keep my job, I need, you know what I mean? It makes it really hard to receive. And then you have the other personality types that are like, shoot me straight, because if you don't say it blunt, I'm not going to understand what you're saying, right? But
Yeah.
then the one in here of don't trust their people and don't believe that they can or will grow, that one I think is also just really unfortunate and really normal in our day and age and our culture, because I think that's tied to the 27% of people who said that their managers have tried, but it didn't work. And what I hear commonly from managers is, I'm doing what worked for me. I'm emulating the best manager I ever had, who was just so, I just really admired her, or he was really helpful in my growth. But unfortunately, it's just not working for everyone else that I lead. And so it leads you then to, unfortunately, have views of maybe my people aren't motivated, or maybe this person is, just here for a paycheck, or maybe they're just, gossipy or whatever. You start to then move to some adjectives that unfortunately go into like a character judgment, which oftentimes actually can just come back to different ways that people process information. It could be your person isn't doing something because they're a perfectionist and they're afraid of making mistakes, or it could be that they're not doing something because you didn't say it clear enough. You didn't set the expectation clear enough, which you thought it was. So it really can come down to all those complex differences between people.
Yeah, and often, I mean, the manager that you're modeling might have been the best manager you've ever had, but it might not be the best manager that other people have had, right? And I think that's really the point that I think that will drive home a lot today. But let's talk about coaching overall and like how the function of coaching really kind of fuels employee growth and how it really fosters engagement and collaboration.
Yeah. Do you have a specific question you want to start off with that, Gary? Sorry, I actually, here's what just happened. I just looked at the chat to see if we're having questions, and you all are
Yeah.
being delightfully engaged in the chat. So I actually won't be able to keep up with that, but click on the Q&A. If people have questions, Gary and I want to answer it in real time. We want to make sure that this
Yeah.
is helpful to you. So we're not going to, go through a bunch of subjects and wait to the end. We would really love for you to just submit your Q&A right into that, and I will watch that. But I will not be watching the chat, because what just happened will keep happening, where Gary asked me a question and I'm like, oh no, I was looking at the chat. So go ahead, Gary.
Just overarching why coaching is so important to fuel employee growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important because people want to be believed in, people want to be inspired, and people actually do want to grow. Um, I think it was 27% in our poll said that their managers believe their people don't want to grow. Um, but they actually do. It just needs to be given to them in a way that feels like it is a hand up, that it is actually helpful to them. It is because you believe in them. And when people have that sense of, okay, this manager believes in me, is here for me. Not only do they listen to the manager, grow, all of that kind of a thing, but they feel this sense of loyalty. And it actually, like, if you want to go into brain science, when people are in a place of shame or fear, their brain goes into their more like reptilian, like the back part, the lower part of their brain, which is survival mode, right? And this can happen all the time at work, because work is actually how you survive. It's how you get your paycheck, and it's how you send your kids to the activities you want them to be in, all of it. It's how you provide for your life. And when there is this sense of I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not, which could be from I'm getting feedback that's unhelpful, but it could be from I'm not getting any feedback. Like, I don't know how I'm doing, right? It pulls us into this place of fear. But when you can actually, and that shuts down your frontal lobe. When your frontal lobes are where you can, that's where your imagination sits. That's where you can imagine, if I don't pay my rent, I'm going to get kicked out of my apartment, right? That's where you can see potential future consequences. But at work, that plays out, and it's where you can see, hey, we've done this before and I marketed it this way, but then it got low quality leads, so I'm going to do it differently next time. It's how you can just picture the domino effect of what you're going to do. It's also how you can get new information and piece it together with old information. And it's where all creativity and innovation happens, but it's also where your all relational connectivity happens, where you feel warmth with other people. So when somebody coaches you in a way where you believe you are being invested into, not given feedback in a way that feels punitive, but somebody's really there alongside you to help you become more effective, to help you become more of your best self, to help you find what you're most passionate about in the job and do what you're best at. That lights up your frontal lobe because you feel connection with that manager, right? And then that makes it possible for you to then your imagination to work, and your creativity and your innovation, and so you have that loyalty plus better results that come out of that. So that's why it's so important from a neuroscience perspective, but also we've all felt this. I just had to explain the brain to you, but you all knew this. Like, you felt it before when somebody gave you, like, somebody came to you and was like, Kirsten, I know you meant for that to go well, but unfortunately, let's talk about what really happened. And I believe in you, and we're going to do this better next time. When somebody has done that for you, you're like, wow, I'm seen, I'm safe, I'm challenged. I want to do better, right? You know the impact of that, but sometimes we need neuroscience to help us really understand why.
Yeah, I think it absolutely allows us to visualize that a little more. And I think that's actually a great segue into kind of like a practical application of what we just discussed of, we have a question from Veda in the chat of people often view coaching and feedback as two separate things while others discuss it as the same thing. So do you see these as two separate types of communication?
I am really not one about who gets too into semantics. So my personal opinion is they're the same thing. But what experts in the field would say is they can't, some people would argue they're different. Some people would argue they're the same. I personally think they should be lumped together for a number of reasons. One, if you say feedback, people just understand what you're talking about. So from an organizational perspective, sometimes that can be helpful. In a one-on-one conversation, though, if you say, hey, I have some feedback for you, it shoots people into that reptilian brain. It's a place of fear. It's immediate, like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong, right? So actually, I've heard Adam Grant, can't believe I blanked on his name. Adam Grant has this wonderful thing he just put on LinkedIn, I think a few weeks ago, of him speaking somewhere, where he says, the research has shown if you ask people for feedback, they're not going to give you really good information because they don't want to offend you, right? People are too nice, right? Most of you said that.
Right.
Whereas if you say, hey, can you give me some advice? People will have really helpful things to say to you. So that's why I actually like to just talk about coaching. I'll talk about feedback if that's the paradigm people have, but then I want to get them to a paradigm of it's coaching or it's advice or it's something that feels like it's actually an investment into you rather than a punitive, let's talk about everything you did wrong feeling that people will have.
Yeah, and I think that that comment that you just said from Adam Grant, and I won't tell him next time I talk to him that you forgot his name. But we had a couple questions in the chat that referred to coaching upward and asking how do we elicit coaching? How do we elicit feedback when we're not getting it? And also a slight variation of that is when do we have to coach upward? We have an example from Michelle here that feels her CEO is a little too nice, one of the too nice leaders, and she struggles getting true feedback despite letting them know that they would really appreciate it. And I think using that as an opportunity, asking for advice, could be a good opportunity for Michelle to bring that forward.
Yep. I think advice is a great way to ask for it. Another thing I'll toss in here is Kim Scott, Radical Candor. They talk about ask for specific feedback. So go to your CEO right after you did something like a presentation and say, hey, I would love your advice on what I did that was helpful that I should do again next time. And what's one way that I can do better next time? Make it a specific question instead of, hey, I just generally want better feedback, because the truth is your CEO or, whoever you're asking for feedback from who's not giving it to you effectively probably actually does not know how to. So I'll give a personal story here. I have somebody who reports to me. He leads product. I lead, the company. And he had said to me so many times, hey, I want you to give me more accountability. I was like, Alex, I am giving you so much accountability. I'm not sure how to do this differently. We had this conversation for a year. And then we were doing a team building exercise one time where we were just sharing stories of our life with our whole leadership team. And I realized he shared multiple stories where he was given an impossible deadline. And it was exciting to him. So after that, I just went to him. I said, Alex, I need you to launch this thing live to customers by June. And it's a big, hairy problem we've never been able to really figure out. And my goodness, the way the product and engineering team immediately was coalesced around, we're going to do this impossible thing in 3 months, was amazing. So I just share that specific story to say your CEO probably does not know what your version of helpful feedback is. And that's why you don't feel like you're getting it. So go and ask a specific question. I love how Kim Scott talks about that. And help him learn what that would look like for you.
It also kind of speaks of, moving to that level and how a lot of traditional leadership programs kind of fail in delivering this message, and fail in delivering really kind of like tangible feedback on coaching and developing employees.
Right. Yeah. And I would say that comes back to the fact that people are really complicated. I would also say that part of why, so the people are complicated part is because a one size fits all framework often doesn't work. Although I did just reference Kim Scott's because I do think it is genius of just you go and ask for a specific, what can I do better next time? And what did I do well that I should continue doing? Right. But I also, like people will feel clarity in different ways. I think another reason why one-time workshops often fall short, even though they're great and I pay for them in my company and they're very helpful, but they often fall short because people have decades of patterning of relational patterning that has formed how they feel safe, how they feel clarity, how they process information. So, story for me is I unfortunately grew up with a very angry person in my household, and it taught me that if I ever have my own idea, it's actually a dangerous thing for me. If I see something in a different way, it's dangerous for me. And so you can extrapolate that to, of course, when I got into the workplace, giving and receiving feedback was dangerous and scary. But there was also actually like deeper things there, like actually just me seeing, hey, I know this department is doing this way, and I know it could be more efficient if we did it that way. I never shared those ideas because my relational patterning had taught me I'm not intelligent. Those are bad ideas, and it's unkind to give them, right? So I actually needed my leadership to give me feedback of Kirsten. I think you have ideas, you're not sharing them, right? I actually had so much hardwired in my brain that needed to be undone, but that showed up as me being too nice at work. And a one-time workshop cannot untrain decades of what I have been taught, right? And all of our people have that, whether it's childhood, whether it's a bad past boss or marital relationship or what have you. Like we all have gazillions of hours where we've learned one way of operating. And we cannot undo that in a one-time thing. So we really need to give our people more opportunities to practice, more opportunities to understand the nuances of their different people. I love, Gary, I love what ELB has with rehearsal because people need to try it. They need to do it over and over. And a one-time, hey, I'll try it once and we'll be done is not going to work. Because there's so many things they're uncomfortable with. There's so many things that they have to just see over and over, hey, there is a different way, and it will expand their brain and actually rewire how their neurons are connecting.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And the nice thing about a program like rehearsal, which we'll talk about at the end, is that it allows you to tweak the scenarios just like a conversation would go in real time, right? So you're not looking for a scripted response. You're looking for comfort in the situation through a program like that, which I think is hugely important.
When you say comfort in the situation, do you mean for the learners or for the people actually who are receiving that coaching?
I think it can be both.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the learners and I think, the supervisors that are practicing these conversations,
Mm-hmm.
it provides them an opportunity to gain comfort in delivering the messaging, right?
Yeah.
But if everybody's using rehearsal and responding to these difficult conversations through rehearsal as well, it gives the recipient opportunity to practice listening as
Right.
well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I mean, a lot of like what you said with reptilian brain, right? Sometimes we shut down, depending on who we are. Like, if you have criticism for me, I'm somebody that perks up right away
Right.
because like I want to know what that is, right? I want to know what that is and I want to adjust it. I want to adjust it as quickly as I can. But a lot of people just shut down,
Mhm.
right? And knowing how to deliver the message so we get the optimal response from everybody within our remit, I think is really important. And I think
Mhm.
it also segues into one of our questions from Carrie is, what's the best way to build a coaching culture in a workplace where one just doesn't exist?
Uh, so I think a couple of things on that. I think that I was recently on a flight. I love how I just find people, right? I was on a flight. I was sitting next to a woman who is a sales leader inside of an organization, global organization, a few thousand people. And they just got rid of performance reviews, completely removed performance reviews from their workplace because they want a culture of consistent, daily, ongoing coaching. And they thought, these performance reviews once a year, people are just using them as a crutch and only waiting until then, right? And that's not helpful. So we're going to get rid of them. And I was, oh, wow, that's so interesting. How's that going for you? She said, oh, it's terrible. It's not working. I said, well, why not? What's happening? And she said, leadership is not modeling it. When we give feedback to leadership, they don't receive it. They're not giving helpful feedback. This just isn't working because of leadership. So I do think that is one really helpful tale on one, don't get rid of all your structures and hope that organically culture will change because unfortunately it won't. But also two, leadership is so powerful. Leadership, symbolic acts of leadership do open people's minds to what is truly expected, safe, and healthy inside the culture. So I think that's one really important way. However, unfortunately, I think that a lot of people know that, and so they take their leadership development budget and mostly give it to executives because if executives can model, this will transform, right? But that doesn't always trickle to all of culture, right? So I think another really important thing is storytelling inside your organization. We had a situation where we had a manager and a direct report who were very hurt by each other. They could not communicate effectively. The direct report felt like she was being held back. The manager felt like he was incompetent at leading, and it was really hard. And I knew about it. I helped them. They worked through it over. Honestly, it took about 8-9 months. It was a long process. Both of them almost quit throughout it. And so we had the whole company together. We bring them together for an annual retreat, and I had them share their story because that story of being able to say, hey, I tried to give feedback this way, it didn't work. Yeah, no, it did not work. It made me feel so, and it's just safe for the manager and the employee to talk through that publicly. It modeled to everyone, hey, it's actually okay if I speak my mind and it doesn't go well and it's not received well, and then we work through it, right? So I think storytelling's huge. I think leadership is also very important. And then I also think, how can we as learning leaders create more support to our people? Y'all, AI is actually working now. It was like this thing that like launched with ChatGPT 2-3 years ago, and it was totally not helpful for the workplace. And now it is so amazing at personalizing experiences for people and at helping folks understand all those different nuances between the people around them. And you all, unfortunately, don't have budget to get a coach for everyone. And that is where technology can come in and help with these things. So I do think looking for tools that can help create personalized experiences to help people be able to process why it's hard for them to give feedback, to help people be able to understand the differences on the people around them and how to effectively coach them. Because it's not coaching, I think we often think is from the manager to the direct report. But a true culture of coaching is even where peers are wanting to invest in each other to help each other grow. So I would say, leadership, storytelling, and then tools. Look at tools that can help support every single person in your organization.
Yeah, storytelling is such a powerful tool. I recently worked with a client that was they wanted to bring in a program to have supervisors train on difficult conversations, right? Having more coachable moments. And when we really got in and we started talking to the people involved, they were ready to have those conversations, but they didn't feel empowered to have those
Mhm.
conversations. And when we went up to more senior leadership, they were doing most of the work for these supervisors because they felt the supervisors were too busy. and they felt bad by asking them to do it. Where the
Exactly.
supervisors were excited to be able to have these conversations and wanted to feel empowered to do them, and they
Yes.
felt that they were being undermined. They weren't being undermined. What
Yes.
executive leadership was just so worried about adding more to their plate,
Right.
right? And it
Got it.
was that disconnect that once we were able to uncover, we really found out that they had all the tools and the resources. They just needed kind of a structure and a culture that allowed them to execute on that.
Yeah. Angela, I see your question on what tool would we recommend. So there is Coach Hub has come out with an AI coach, which I personally have never interacted with, but this is just my world, so I just am always watching what's out there. It's actually a video coach that every employee can have, and it feels like talking to a human. So they've just launched that. Can't vest like I don't know if it works well or not, but I don't think they would launch it if it was terrible. So it's worth looking into. My company also, Cloverleaf, what we do is we partner with assessment companies and we turn that into AI coaching that comes to Microsoft Teams, calendar, email, where your employees are working every day. We're also integrated into Workday, which is a huge place where people are documenting feedback. And so we give AI coaching while they're giving feedback. We'll say, hey, that's a little too direct for this person. Try also starting with what they did well, or, actually that was not direct enough. So try just getting straight to the point, right? Based on all those different nuances of complicated people. And then there's also an app out there called Rocky AI. It's more on the B2C play where it's two individuals, but I do believe they have a team plan and that's a little bit more around helping people set goals and less on the interpersonal side. And then I've also heard of a lot of people just straight up using ChatGPT or their preferred AI chatbot to just, say, hey, I tried this, it didn't work. Help me understand what I could do better, or like, how can I give feedback in this situation? And amazingly, I think ChatGPT does a pretty good job. It doesn't have the personality information of the unique individuals around you, but it can
Right.
help you think through some of those frameworks that you all have helped people learn. And you could even spin up your own instance of ChatGPT is what I work in. You can probably do this in Perplexity or Claude or all those other ones too. But you can spin up your own corporate instance inside of one of those of these are the frameworks you have taught. These are the behaviors you expect. These are your company values. You could put all of that into your own instance and then give that to your whole company and just say, hey, process how to give feedback or coaching or advice through this instance of ChatGPT. So there's a ton of great tools out there.
Yeah, and we have within rehearsal, uh, you can do exactly what you just said in ChatGPT and create those scenarios, but then it'll give AI graded feedback based on a rubric that you set in the background on how you've done in that conversation. Like what areas that you need to work on, when you practice again, kind of like the key points that you should be hitting. So it gives people the opportunity to really practice that back and forth.
Yeah.
One question that's kind of come up a lot is what do we say for when we're building this culture of learning and building this culture of coaching, um, what do we say to the detractors that constantly are just bringing up that we're too busy? We're too busy to do this. We're too busy to execute on this. We're too busy to learn how to do this.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to weave into this Mustafa's question too of how do you rebuild trust when coaching or feedback has been mishandled or led to disengagement in the past, because I
Yeah.
think those are actually really closely related.
Yep, I agree.
So everyone is too busy. And I think that's what us learning leaders hear all the time, right? And I actually think that's really good for us to keep hearing because we think that we need to remove people from their workplace to give them a workshop. And the more time we have, the more powerful it is. And we can teach them a new way and they can practice it. But what people really need is actually something that is right there with them in that moment of I am too busy and I cannot handle this and I'm really stressed, and is giving them information on what they are most stressed about, right? So that's why we've built our tool to be integrated in all those places. But again, like I said, there are ways that you can just use the tools available to you and build your own where people can just like right after that one-on-one and it didn't go well, just go, type about it inside of some sort of a tool that's helping them with that, right? And when it just takes one time of I finally gave my direct report that advice and they did it, when they realize, oh, I'm not too busy for this. Like that's actually how I become efficient. But they need that one success and that one quick win, right? And to Mustafa's question of, well, what do you do when it hasn't gone well in the past? And people get gun shy, right? I actually think that is such a powerful moment for your culture when you or an individual has given feedback and it did not go well, to then still honor that other person as a human who has a good heart and go and talk to them about it. Hey, I tried to tell you this. I don't think it went well. How can I do better for you next time? Give me some advice. How can I help you more effectively? Right? You can just flip it. You can jujitsu it on them. You can flip it back around to exactly what didn't go well. How do you help people do that? And folks, you can train your own custom chatbot to help your people do that, right? And you can also use the other tools that we mentioned. And then another thing is, I just want to say, I think our people feeling too busy is not going away. It's always going to be our case. In the 1960s, everyone was freaking out about automation and how it's going to make it so that people are going to all lose their jobs and the ones who work are only going to work 20 hours a week and we're going to have so much leisure time. And that never happened. We all know what happened. Instead, our expectation of productivity just went up, right? And I think the same thing's going to happen with AI. Everyone's freaking out. We're going to lose jobs. I do think jobs are going away, but they're going to be replaced with different jobs. Like job descriptions are just going to change, right? But we still are going to expect, we're not going to expect the same amount of productivity. We're going to expect 100x the productivity for each person, right? And so that feeling of busyness will never go away. So how do we actually serve our people with tools that are right there on demand for them, like ELB's rehearsal, right? They can do it on their own time. Like how do we help come to our people with that support when they need it in their busyness? And how do we best understand what is stressing them? Because what they're stressed about is what they will try a new behavior on. And then when they see that success, that is what breeds their realization that this will help me be less busy. Like, the leadership that was too afraid to give something to the supervisors because they thought it would stress them out too much, and then realized, oh, wait, we're all more efficient if I say it, right? You just need that one success to realize, wait, this is my key to a more balanced, efficient, and relationally rich way of working.
Yeah, we're actually seeing the highest anxiety about job loss in employees that are further behind on the adoption curve of AI,
Yeah.
because it's this scary thing in the ether rather than it being a tool that they can use to increase their own productivity. So they're seeing everybody else that's using it kind of increasing their output, right? So that's becoming the new expectation. And when they're lagging behind, they're having a very difficult time absorbing the fact that it's going to be an essential tool moving forward. I read somewhere the other day that job descriptions are going to put proficiency in AI, just
Oh,
like,
they already do.
right.
Yeah.
When you and I were applying to jobs and it was proficiency in Word or Excel, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so true.
So we've talked a lot about, and I think we're nearing the end. So we've talked a lot about fostering this environment of open communication, right? And having, you just mentioned having an open conversation when the coaching conversation didn't go well,
Right.
to have that human moment with the employee, kind of like admit what you could have done better, admit how they could have received it better, and really just have that
Amen.
conversation. How do we really foster that open communication within these organizations?
I think it's really, really important to recognize it will not be started at the lower levels because they have more to lose and less authority, right?
Yeah.
And it's also really, really important to recognize that everyone is bringing baggage. I mean, I talked about the decades of relational patterning. We all have
Yeah.
hardwired in our brains, but thank God there's neuroplasticity. We can change things, right? Um, and I think it comes back to what we already talked about, Gary. Like telling stories is really helpful. Sharing examples of this happened and putting people on a pedestal. The people who do it, put them on a pedestal and celebrate them. that could be, you know, some people don't like public recognition. So, you know, for those folks, even just like, hey, here's a $15 to a local coffee shop. Thank you so much. You know what I mean? Like things like that where you are celebrating, you are honoring. Or you know, if you have folks who are comfortable with the spotlight, like putting them in the spotlight and letting them share their story, it just starts to it normalizes, it creates the expectation, but even more importantly, it gives examples of what does it actually look like to openly speak my mind and it didn't go well and we're still good and we come back and we resolve, right? Everybody believes that's a great thing, but how do you actually do it? And how do you handle all the hard feelings that come with it? So Gary, I think it's the same answer as before. It's uh,
Yeah.
leadership has to model it. If and you know, we don't all have control over that, but if you're in leadership, model it the best you actually wherever you are, whatever position you're in, even you know, the interns can change the atmosphere by the way they model things sometimes. If people just see admirable behavior, they notice it, right? So modeling it, especially from leadership, but whoever you are, whatever role you're in, modeling it, telling stories of it, and putting them on a pedestal, and then give your people the tools and support that that can come to them in their flow of work and don't require
Yeah.
leaving the busyness.
We talk about the paradigm shift in businesses a lot, where we're seeing more the need for employee-led change, right? And transparency and leadership is really what fosters that the most. Like,
Yep.
especially, the power that everybody has is going to have through agentic AI to solve complex business problems from the application level up, right?
Yeah.
So you know what's going to help you best doing your job every day. And we're
Mhm.
going to need to ladder those ideas up to leadership rather than having leadership realize how you can do your job better and foster that down. And fostering that transparent communication is the only way that we can really achieve that. And I think we need to taking those steps now.
Yeah, and I will add to that, I am a leader of an organization and I feel the weight of everything I just said because I also am an imperfect human. And so I think part of that is the ability for leaders to be human, and to make mistakes and to learn that they made a mistake and to recover from it, right? Um, so I would say if you are a leader, I know this is hard. If you report to a leader, help them out. Give them feedback, advice. Give them advice that will help them. And when they do stumble, help them see a better way and help them be transparent because leadership is lonely and at the same time super powerful. So if we can help our leaders do those symbolic acts, that that creates a huge ripple effect, like you said, Gary, towards more transparent and open cultures.
We've talked about tools. I'm just going through the Q&A right now. I don't want anybody that put the effort of putting something in here to feel left out. Think we've covered just about everything. It's really about that balance and really about shifting the dynamic, right? I think what you just said best too is, going to leaders and offering them feedback too, and really, shifting the paradigm a little bit, and making them understand what works best for you. Be like, hey,
Yeah.
I think I'm a key contributor here. I think I'm doing a great job. This
Yeah.
is what works best for me. Can we get on the same page here? And
Right.
I think it makes a huge difference.
I think so too, because you're not going to go to your manager and say, "Hey, I have advice on how you can do a better job of
Right.
leading," right? Like
Exactly.
that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the more you can help them see specifically how to best lead you, the more it opens their mind to the nuanced differences between everyone they lead and how they can truly help each of them in the unique ways that they need that help them become their best and do their best. Those things are really not intuitive. We kind of just by default think everyone is like us, which is why those assessment tools, which I'm sure a lot of you have invested into, like, Hogan Disc, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, they're so helpful at us uncovering some of those differences. And if you don't have those tools at your just you know in your tool belt, you can at least just be a human and help somebody see what it is that you need and it will start to open their minds.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue for our last potential question here that we're going to answer is solid metrics.
Mm,
So we have those tests, we have those personality assessments. But if we can't directly tie coaching best practices essentially to the bottom line,
right,
a lot of companies are not going to invest in it.
right.
So is there a way that you have seen success in tying coaching to business performance?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, somebody in here mentioned, turnover is skyrocketing. Turnover is a really easy one,
Yeah,
but it's a very late one. That means you've had
you're
something's
right.
been on fire for a long time, right?
Exactly.
So I'm just gonna say what I really want everyone to hear is hold your vendors accountable to better data for you. Because you, as a learning leader, I think the best thing you can do is a bunch of surveys, which people are surveyed out. So hold your technical vendors accountable to helping you get better data, because we have a lot of data and we can.
Lovely. Well, my face is here, which means we are out of time. But before we kind of segue into our next session, is there anything else you would like to leave with the audience today? I feel like it was very impactful, but any last words before we kick it off?
So many. I'll just say, hey, two things. One, we're all human. The more that you can be human at work, it really does have an impact on those around you. And treating others as human is just rich. And it's a slow game, but being human helps. And then technology helps you scale all that. Especially today, it's exciting times. And then the other thing I'll say is I'd love to continue the conversation. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. Just Kirsten Moorefield on LinkedIn, co-founder of Cloverleaf. I would love to continue the conversation.
Yep. Likewise, I'm here to answer any questions, and Kirsten and I'll come in and tag team anything that you really need done.
Yes, no, these are excellent people. So totally reach out to them for further conversations, which there were over 20 plus questions in the chat. So yes, if you wanted to dive more into those questions, totally reach out to these guys. They're great. And so with that, so if you're new to Zoom events, yes, we will be taking that 15-minute break. So up next, we do have Melissa Phelps joining us from Biz Library for their session, Transforming Feedback, Navigating Types, Triggers, and Tough Conversations. So in a moment, I'm going to end this session, and you can join our next session by returning to the event lobby and then going to that session tab. So please stick around for our next session, which will begin at the top of the hour. See you guys soon.